10, in fact, with Haslam, Sykes and Locatelli all in their pit boxes as well. As far as the leaders are concerned, the only two out on the circuit at the moment, number 45, Scott Redding, currently
loses 0.4 of a second to Top Rack in that final sector, and in that final sector, no one's gotten closer than 0.4 to Top Rack, so that is where the Yamaha's working really well at this stage. Obviously, you expect it is no surprise that in a section of the track where you really need to brake on the angle, that the Yamaha's just got that bit of extra performance in some of the other bikes out there. So that is where the Yamaha's really strong. We've seen it so far around this track that in the middle sectors it has been a case of the Kawasaki's and the Ducatis having a little bit of an advantage, but that can all change now in the final 10 minutes of the session.
Yeah, so it's not sort of a Ducati problem in that last sector, it's more about Top Rack and the way he works with his Yamaha.
Yeah, everyone's going to have a bit of a Top Rack problem.
Possible as far as track familiarisation was concerned.
Well, I think that's why we saw some longer stints at the start of the session, riders going out doing 8 or 9 laps and then coming into the pits and making some changes to the bikes and then going out for these final 12 minutes, and you'd expect to see everyone stay out all the way through until the end of this session now.
Yes, KRT leaving it late to return to the circuit, as we've been saying, but a couple of other riders also out onto track, Andrea Locatelli and Tati Mercado just completing their installation laps. Not quite sure what Michael Van der Mark was waving his hand about there. We might be about to see it.
Big moment there as he back shifts down in towards those ever tightening right-handers at the end of the lap, and for Van der Mark, he's able to at least live to fight another day, and he's going to rejoin the track and still be able to set some times. The sim just coming through turn 1 down into
Jonathan Ray 4th and Scott Redding 5th. A fair number of Ducatis up towards the front of the field.
Yeah, and certainly that's what Scott Redding's going to expect to see through the course this weekend, is that Ducati have the performance to be able to get to the front. He wants to be a spoiler. As it is right now, he's 5th fastest, but you'd expect to see him find some performance as we move through the sessions today. But Ducati, they can be that spoiler. If the bike works and it's in that right operating window, we've seen them so strong all the way through this season. This could be one of those tracks that really does suit it, and the reason for that is we're going to have really high track temperatures. We're at 63 degrees track temperature at this point, and it's only going to get hotter through the rest of the day. If you think back to the likes of Misano, when we had high track temperatures earlier in the season, that's when we saw the best from Michael Rubin Rinaldi. If you think back to when we saw some great performance from Bassani as well, that was with the high track temperatures.
Yes,
this weekend. One of the big things is just getting your body to cool down after you've been out on track. That's why we're going to see the riders with their little paddling pools out the back of the garages, and they'll get straight into that once they finish a session, bring down their body temperature, get themselves cool and start the recovery process, because that's one of the big challenges that you have in World SBK. With 3 races in a weekend, it's really difficult for these riders. Very different challenge to what you have for the likes of MotoGP riders, where you've got, you know, Friday practice, physical to train, manhandle the bike over the course of a 21 lap race, that you're going to need to have an awful lot of concentration to avoid making mistakes, and that's one of the big challenges for the riders. Physically they can deal with that a lot because of how hard they train, and they're all prepared for that physically, but mentally as well, you can't afford to make mistakes.
Well, the ones who will struggle with it the most inevitably will be the riders who've been out injured, the riders still recovering from injury. I know Chaz Davies was not
super fit, and that advantage that you might have had, it does get minimised quite a bit. But if you just have that small 1% advantage, it can make the difference over the course of 3 races in the weekend.
Yes, he's not shy of the mountain passes, is he? A little bit of cycling up in Andorra.
Yeah, and you tend to see with all these riders, when you look at their social media, it's always in the middle of race weekends, or the gap between race weekends, they're training hard, they're all out cycling or hiking or running or one thing after the other. And I think here in Indonesia, we've seen quite a few of them out swimming as well.
Or just before race weekends, if you're Scott Redding, of course.
Yeah, and obviously for Scott, that gap between Jerez and Portimao, cycling between the 2 tracks, it was an interesting way to get himself ready, but it worked. He had a great weekend in Portimao.
Yes, anyone who'd been criticising him prior to that weekend for the decision to exert himself between 2 rounds quickly had to eat humble pie after a brace of second position.